Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadri ki jai. Tirobhava Mahotsava Titi. Not yet. Srila Radha Pandit Goswami ki jai. Tirobhava Mahotsava Titi. Srila Satchidananda Moy Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Praman. So good evening to all of you. Welcome. Thanks for coming over and over again. So today we are continuing with our evening series of Katan. Today, for a very good reason, we are interrupting, in one sense only, our flow of Hari Katha in connection to Mahaprabhu's experience of Jagannath Puri, in order to invoke some words in connection to the sacred disappearance, divine Tirobhava of Sri Pandit Goswami Gadadhara Prabhu, which again has, as we will see, has a lot to do with Jagannath Puri, since Gadadhara Pandit disappeared from our mortal vision in Sri Jagannath Puri. So today we are celebrating this Tirobhava, which happened to be according to contemporary timing in the year 1535. So you can make your numbers how much is Gadadhara Pandit disappearing, how long, from how long. And today in the morning, let's remember, keeping in mind, bear in mind the connection between today's morning class and today's evening class. Today in the morning, we will be speaking about Srila Thakur Bhaktivinod's Tirobhava Mahotsava, which is intimately connected with Gadadhara's Pandit's Tirobhava. The two of them actually, Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, he had some particular vision, seeing the two of them really intimately connected one another. Bhakti not being a very interesting expression and manifestation of Gadadhara Pandit himself. He composed the pranam mantra to his Gurudev Bhaktivinoda Thakur. How to say the pranam mantra? Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidananda Namine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate. So he said Gora Shakti Swarupaya. So who is Gora Shakti Swarupaya? Other than Gadadhara Pandit. So he saw Bhaktivinoda Thakur as a very unique representation of Sri Gadadhara Prabhu. And of course, as we mentioned, Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself worshipped Gadadhara Pandit along with Mahaprabhu in Godrum, in Sri Gaur Gadadhara, where Bhaktivinoda's Istadevata. So today in the morning we mentioned how, after speaking a little bit about the life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, how Bhaktivinoda Thakur made this like unusual statement at the end of his life. I would like to leave this world where? In Kurukshetra. So we try to explain why he said that. We connected that with Krishna's being there for the solar eclipse and rather trying meeting him, but we've been not able to meet him, and she being in such a necessity of receiving service, receiving support from her intimate, most intimate and dearest. So interestingly, he's leaving this world with this statement: I would like to leave from this world and enter for eternity into a portal where my mistress, my Swamini, is in this great necessity of service, and I can be there to provide something. So simultaneously, he, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is worshipping she, Sri Radha, in the form of Gadadhara, because Gadadhara Pandit is none other than Srimati Radha herself. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is worshipped, because again, he said, I want to live in Kurukshetra with this idea in mind, but as we know, he didn't live the world from Kurukshetra. He left his body, but in good room, worshipping Gadadhara. And we could say, what's the connection there? So again, Sri Radha in Kurukshetra, Sri Radha, the idea is Radha in Kurukshetra is one way of speaking about Sri Radha in her most needy moment, or one of them. But Gadadhar, Sri Radha's Gadadhar in Gaur Lila, we could say that's Sri Radha in one of her most needy moments as well. He left in that particular portal, if you will. Because if there is necessity of service, we spoke today about that. No? As much as I perceive a necessity of service, I will be able to develop an identity as a servant by the way of identifying with that necessity. So Krishna is so needy. We spoke today in the morning about that. Sri Radha as well, because if Krishna is needy, she is needy because her needs are his needs. She lives only to identify with Krishna's needs. So when Krishna has a particular need called, I want to taste Radha Bhav, that's the necessity in the life of Krishna. As my Guru Maharaj will say, that's Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu is Krishna in existential crisis, basically. No? Like totally affected about who I am, what she experiencing regarding to me. I do not know that. I would like to taste that, how to do that, and so on. No? Recalibrating his own sense of self, basically. So the point is, Krishna as Mahaprabhu is the absolute, as we will say, in his most vulnerable moment, with such a deep, delicate necessity. But as we also say, he's the absolute in the most volcanic moment. Mahaprabhu is compared to a volcano. So he's vulnerable and he's volcanic. That's a teaching for us sadhakas. If we learn to be properly vulnerable, that will show us our highest type of empowerment. Vulnerability and empowerment are connected if we really properly understand. So Mahaprabhu is Krishna in his most upgraded form. Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami describes like this: Mahaprabhu is Paratattva Simha. Paratattva Simha means the ultimate reach of the absolute. It's an interesting way of when Krishna Das Kaviraj basically says Mahaprabhu is above Krishna himself. I mean, he is Krishna himself, but it's Krishna, his ultimate, most upgraded, maximized expression. Krishna knowing himself on a level that he didn't know himself as Krishna in Vrindavan. Try to understand this point. It's quite deep, I know, and complex and esoteric, but Mahaprabhu is our deity. So we need to somehow try to really understand in some way who he is. So again, if Krishna's Mahaprabhu is in such a need, then immediately Radha as Gadadhara is in such need as well. You follow my point? I mean, Radha's need follow Krishna's needs. Whatever Krishna needs, that's her need. She makes that need her own because she lives only to satisfy Krishna's necessities. I mean, his Swarup Shakti personified. So in other words, Gadadhar Pandit is Sri Radha in the moment of her greatest necessity. Why? Because she's serving Krishna in the moment of his greatest necessity as Mahaprabhu. So his necessity becomes her necessity, but amplified. This is Gaur Lila. All those things that we find in Krishna Lila, amplified, extended. So this is Gaur Lila, and this is a unique contribution of Sri Gadadhara, as we will see. Because who is Gadadhar Pandit? I won't enter into detail today too much about that. I would like to concentrate on his last days. But Gadadhar Pandit is, of course, again, Sri Radha and Gaur Lila. And being that she's Sri Radha and Gaur Lila is all about Krishna tasting Radha Bhav. I mean, if Krishna wants to taste Radha Bhav, I mean, that depends on the one who possesses Radha Bhav. The fact that Krishna wants to taste Radha Bhav means he doesn't have it. So who is the owner of that Radha Bhav? Radha. So she's the one who will give that to him in the form of Gadadhar. So Gadadhar is really that personality which allows Gaur Lila to make sense, basically, which allows Mahaprabhu to be successful and taste the Radha Bhav. Without Gadadhar Pandit, there is no Gaur Lila. So strictly speaking, Gadadhar Pandit is the most important figure of the whole Gaur Lila. And Gaur Lila is the most important Lila. So today we are celebrating Gadadhar Pandit's Day. In one sense, this is the most important day of the whole year for us. Understanding in this way. Again, Gadadhar is totally low profile. That's the most cryptic, enigmatic, and unknown person of the whole Gaur Lila almost. The one that we recite the Panchatattva mantra and so on, but if you go to Shastra, person it's spoken the least about, that's Gadadhara Pandit. Because Gadadhara is Sri Radha, but appearing in a mood corresponding to the need of the Leela. Again, remember, we are to serve Bhagavan according to the need of the Leela, to the mood he is in, or to the mood he wants to be in this case, as Gaur Leela. So Sri Radha immediately adapts according to the necessity of the moment. So what's the necessity of the moment again? My Sri Radha will think, no? My beloved wants to taste my bhav, but my bhav is so powerful, as we know. So she tells to Krishna, "Man, this is too much. You want this project to happen? You don't know what this will make to you. You will end the floor rolling and crying, and your body will be smashed on the floor and on the walls. And I cannot even think about such a thing may happen to your lotus-like tender body." So we know Sri Radha embraces Krishna and covers him with her own complexion. And that's why Krishna appears with the golden complexion of Sri Radha. It's called Gauranga. She's called Gaurangi. Mahaprabhu is called Gauranga. He with the golden limbs. And yeah, he's trying to taste Radha Bhav, and he gradually is tasting Radha Bhav. And it is said that Gadadhara Pandit, Sri Radha, as Gadadhara, is allowing him to taste Radha Bhav in installments, sustainable installments, because he becomes overwhelmed more and more and more and more. And the more Mahaprabhu is tasting Radha Bhav, the more Gadadhara Pandit is disappearing more and more and more. And there's one point in Gaur Lila when nothing is said about Gadadhara Pandit. Gadadhara Pandit has totally disappeared. And Mahaprabhu is bathing in the glory of tasting Radha Bhav. At the end of we'll speak about that a little bit on our last discussion, when we will speak about Shikshastakam and the last days of Mahaprabhu. But again, some trailer here to guarantee that you will be here that day. So the point is that when Mahaprabhu is bathing in the glory of tasting Radha Bhav at the end of his manifest pastime, we do not hear anything about Gadadhara. But Gadadhara is behind the curtains, allowing all that to happen, facilitating. Is rather giving her Bhav more and more and more, so her Krishna is able to be successful in this like ambitious, you say, project. But without taking any glory for herself. It's not like, hey, I am the one allowing all this to happen. Gadadhara is totally disappeared behind the curtain. Mahaprabhu, all the lights, limelights are Mahaprabhu. But if properly understood, we will see all the glories for Gadadhara ultimately. The main glory, he's allowing that to happen. So this is a very important contribution he's making. So today we want to share some glimpses regarding Gadadhara's Pandit service disposition. When, again, he's totally identified with the need of Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu is God. I mean, let's begin with us. No? That will help us to identify. We are here in this world trying to stop being Prakriti and becoming Purusha in technical terms. No? We have Prakriti and Purusha. Purusha is like the enjoyer, let's say, and Prakriti is that which is to be enjoyed. So we don't like the idea of being enjoyed, so we want to enjoy. So we try to step into the shoes of being Purusha. But actually to say there's only one Purusha, and it's not us, just in case. Because if I say there's only one Purusha, you may wonder who among us may be the Purusha. No? I want to be that. So not Greg, not Semananda, not Onkar, but the other one will think, I want to be that. So that's when the competition and the friction comes in this world. But the solution is none of you is the Purusha, so you can relax. So Purusha is Bhagavan, Purushottam, Supreme Person, Supreme Enjoyer, and we are Prakriti. We are to be enjoyed by the Supreme Enjoyer. If we are enjoyed by the Supreme Enjoyer, that's fine. The problem is when we are enjoyed by not the Supreme Enjoyer. And we will, what to speak when we try to be the Supreme Enjoyer, like we make the problem even bigger. But interestingly, in Gaur Lila, the Supreme Enjoyer, Purushottam, is teaching, I want to taste the higher thing, and for that, I need to throw away this Purusha Bhav myself. I'm Purushottam. I need to throw away Purusha Bhav, and I will want to taste Prakriti Bhav, which is Radha Bhav, Para Prakriti Bhav. So he's showing to us, you want to be Purusha, I'm Purusha. I'm throwing away that idea. I want to taste what does it feel to be Prakriti. What does it feel to be a devotee, basically? Gaur Lila is telling us that message. All of you want to be God. God says, I want to be devotee. Huh? Did you get it? He's trying to say to us, Mahaprabhu, when you have the chance of being a devotee, I want to be a devotee. I want to put aside my God side. I want to taste what does it feel to be a devotee. Of course, when God wants to be a devotee, he won't be just a Kanishta Bhakta or something like this. He will be the devotee par excellence. Sri Radha. So again, Mahaprabhu is giving on one side, throwing away, putting aside his Purusha Bhav and trying to taste Prakriti Bhav. And Gadadhara Pandit is there allowing all that to happen by giving his or her as Radha own nature and bhava. So Krishna is tasting that more and more and more. But again, today we want to mainly concentrate on, since today is the disappearance day of Gadadhara Prabhu. Some months ago we celebrated in North Carolina his appearance day. Share some words in that regard. But today we want to concentrate on his disappearance day. So there are some important things to share regarding the last chapters of his life. To begin with, interestingly, Sri Gadadhara Pandit disappeared on a day like today, which according to the lunar calendar is which day? Amavasya. So Amavasya means new moon. You have middle moon, full moon, and so on. So today is Amavasya, which means new moon. New moon means no moon, basically. And interestingly, Gadadhara Pandit disappears on Amavasya, and Gadadhara Pandit appears on Amavasya. And in two parts of the year, today, and maybe one, maybe more as much 2 months back or something, appeared, which in both days, the season corresponds in India with the hot summer. So very dark day and very hot. So our acharyas have drawn some poetical analogy from here, from all this. And to begin with, he's saying, as we have heard sometimes, Krishna appears on which day?
Half moon.
Astami, which is half moon. That's what we call Janmastami. And Sri Radha appears on Astami also, half moon. So we have Astami and Astami, half moon, half moon. So you have half moon and the two halves, Radha and Krishna together make one moon. So Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna, but wanted to taste Radha Bhav, and in that sense he's Radha and Krishna combined. In that sense, he appears on, therefore, full moon, because the two half moons get together. He's Krishna, he's not Radha, he's Krishna, but in the mood of Radha. So what happens when Radha appears? If she has given her mood to Mahaprabhu, she appears on no moon, because her half moon was given to Gaur. So we have that poetic analogy there. And again, no moon. No moon means dark. No, dark. So it represents a very dark situation. No, in the proper sense of the way, in the sense that Gadadhara again is behind the curtains. No, it's not shining in the limelight like Mahaprabhu is doing, tasting Radha. It's appearing more and more and emptying himself out so Mahaprabhu can be successful. In that sense, there is darkness, there is emptiness, and very hot time of the year, like dealing with this intense sacrifice service disposition in the service of his beloved. So needy is Mahaprabhu, therefore so needy is Gadadhara Pandit. And therefore so much necessity of service we have in relation to offer to them. So this service of Gaur Gadadhara is the topmost pinnacle of devotional dedication, basically. So in this sense, Gadadhara represents a form of emptiness, but it's an emptiness that properly understood speaks about fullness. And sometimes Buddhists will speak about the fullness of emptiness. So we can apply the same idea here. Gadadhara represents the fullness of emptiness. She is emptying herself out giving all her bhav to Krishna's Mahaprabhu, but in that emptying herself, in that giving disposition, total sacrifice, there is fullness. The glory of her love for him shines even much more, basically. So in today's song that we shared some minutes ago, that was composed by Vishnupat Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, he depicted some of the main moments of Gadadhar's life, especially in his last period, because the song in itself was an offering he composed for Sri Gadadhar's Tirobhava, today's disappearance. So let's go there, but briefly, I hope, briefly, some brief recap of his life before reaching Puri. Gadadhar Pandit was born, he was 1 year younger than Mahaprabhu. And they were classmates and friends like from day one, basically, of their manifest lila and their founding all the early lila. There were one made for the other, if you will. Remember, they are Radha and Krishna, but in a particular lila disposition. So they were friends from childhood. They were classmates, and whenever Gaur was going, Vishwambar Nimai, Gadadhar will be there. Gadadhar was a Vaishnava from birth. Well, I should know, Mahaprabhu was not that case in the lila. He was a proud, arrogant pandit during the first time of his life. But Gadadhar was so charmed with him, and Mahaprabhu will try to to pinch him by trying to debate with him, and Gadadhar will cover his ear and run after. Shri Radha's Gadadhar appear in a very mild, mild disposition, particular, not so much like the Bamya nature that Shri Radha will show in Vrindavan, like the left wing, if you will, nature sometimes she takes there. So according to the need of the Leela, again, remember. And he was always with him in Nadia, especially as we know when Mahaprabhu started to receive initiation from Ishwar Puri, became officially a Vaishnava, and was driven by madness, divine madness, and at one point he wanted to even open his chest, trying to look for Krishna. The famous story, looking for Krishna, looking for Krishna. But they'll say, do not go mad looking for Krishna, he's in your heart. Mahaprabhu looked in his heart and tried to open and tear apart his chest looking for Krishna. He's there. Let me meet him. But Gadadhar was very expert in calming him down at this moment. So Sachi was saying, oh, he's so expert in dealing with my Nimai, with my boy. Nobody else has that capacity. So he asked, please Gadadhar, remain with him always. Do not leave him ever, please. I don't know what will happen with him. So Gadadhar, of course, continued in this way. And when Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas and went to Puri, Gadadhar went there with him as well. And he resided in one place called Tota Gopinath. So we will speak today a little bit about Gadadhar's residing in Puri, in Tota Gopinath, and some of his leelas. So it is said that in Puri, now we go back to Puri for a minute, where we were hopefully all these days, and Mahaprabhu was totally invaded, immersed into divine madness and projecting his bhav everywhere and saying, I don't know, Chatak Parvat, which is a little sand dune in Jagannath Puri, which is little sand dune. It's not like a big thing if you are there. But he saw that and that became like Udipana or stimulant for, let's go over that. No. He was in Radha Bhav and seeing Vrindavan here and there. And then he saw the ocean. It's funny because the sand dune is like this, no? And he projected the hill like that. And then he saw the ocean, which is like this. And he saw the Jamuna, who is relatively smaller than the ocean. But he was seeing everything through the lens of his bhav, more and more and more and more. So it is said that one day in Radha Bhav, in the mood of separation, remember Mahaprabhu is in Radha Bhav, and mostly in Radha Bhav in Vipralamba, in the mood of separation. That's why he went to Jagannath Puri, which is Vipralamba Kshetra, or the stage for culturing separation. Jagannath himself is the very deity of separation. You can see how Krishna becomes when he's in separation from Shri Radha. So at one point he was desperately in the mood of Radha looking for Krishna. Where is my Prananath? Where is my Praneshwar? Where is the Lord of my life? Where? And he started, like, in this case, he was not tearing apart his chest, but he started to tear apart the earth and trying to escape, you say? Excavate, sorry. With his own hands, like looking for Krishna. Try to imagine. We have to reach that level of healthy desperation someday. I mean, I cannot live without Krishna. Where is Krishna? He's here, is there. Bring some tools. We make a hole in the ground and look for Krishna somewhere. So interestingly, he was looking for Krishna and started to excavate with his own hands. And at one point, he found on earth the tip of the mukut, like the crown of someone. So it was the deity of Krishna who was carved in stone. So he found Krishna. He was looking for Krishna. His bhav guided him in the proper direction. Generally, you won't excavate something and a deity of Krishna will appear. But when you are guided by proper bhav, magic happens. So, so he found the deity and he called Gadadhara. He said, I found the most precious treasure here. Would you like to accept it? So Mahaprabhu gave the deity to Gadadhara as a gift. And Gadadhara, of course, agreed. So, I mean, at one point it was seen on one level, so Gadadhara helped Mahaprabhu to finally excavate the whole of the deity, and they took it. So Mahaprabhu gave the name to this deity, the name of Gopinath. Gopinath. And because this deity appeared on a garden, which in Oriya is the language of Orissa, which is the area where Jagannath Puri is located. Garden, it's called Tota. Tota. So Tota and Gopinath. So the deity nowadays is called Tota Gopinath, basically. And that's when Gadadhara is giving, Mahaprabhu is giving the deity to Gadadhara and say, okay, this is now you have the responsibility of worshipping Gadadhara, Tota Gopinath. And never abandon the worship of Tota Gopinath. And on top of that, in this context, Gadadhara, there are different versions, but basically some say Mahaprabhu gives himself to Gadadhara Kshetra Sannyas, or Gadadhara himself accepts Kshetra Sannyas. What Kshetra Sannyas means? To accept the order of Sannyas, but with the vow of remaining in one Kshetra, which means in one place. Like I accept one vow and I say, I will never leave this place. And generally that's in connection with some of the dhams, no? Vrindavan, Puri, Navadvip, like this. I'll stay here for the rest of my life. Like along with the vow of sannyas, the vow of remaining in that sacred spot forever. Of course, Gadadhara did this when because accepted this, if you will, or did this, whatever the case, knowing that Mahaprabhu went to Puri. I mean, Mahaprabhu went to Puri to establish his headquarters there. So Gadadhara say, okay, I made the vow to never leave that place, which basically means to never leave the service of Mahaprabhu. But after this, I'm going a little bit forward here, as you may know. At one point, Mahaprabhu wants to go to Vrindavan. I'm going a little bit forward here, but in this context, he tries one time, two times. The third time he goes, basically. He tried one time after accepting sannyas immediately. It didn't work for different reasons. Second time, didn't work. He was going with too big of a crowd, and Sanatana Goswami recommended, don't go to Vrindavan with a big crowd. And third time, he was able to do that, to go there. We'll speak about that these days. But the point is that when Mahaprabhu is going to Vrindavan, Gadadhara is following him. Because again, his notion is, I will go wherever you go, like a shadow. Mahaprabhu said, what are you doing? Say, I'm going with you to Vrindavan. No, I'm trusting you, the worship of Tota Gopinath. And you took Kshetra Sannyas. I mean, you accepted this vow some months ago, and just you're breaking your vows, like. And Gadadhara said, Gadadhara always was really of a mild nature, non-argumentative, and very like. But in this moment, he showed Radha's left wing side, if you will, not like to hell with my Kshetra sannyas, basically. I say I accepted that sannyas only because you are staying at Jagannath Puri. If you leave Puri, I don't care for my vows. I mean, my vow is to be with you and to serve you. And so he's making the point: if you accept sannyas, I mean, it's for some other reason, not just for the sake of sannyas itself. So Gadadhara accepted sannyas that will facilitate my seva to Mahaprabhu. If sannyas is getting in the way, I break my sannyas. And as we know, Mahaprabhu was so strict in being a strict sannyas himself, but Gadadhara says, I don't care. Yeah, you don't care, Mahaprabhu said, but I care. I do care, because people will criticize you, and by extension, they will criticize me. So do you want me to be criticized? No. So he started to argue in this way, and Gadadhara Pandita was, so there was this coming and going, and Gadadhara continued walking. And Mahaprabhu said, I go to Vrindavan, do whatever you like. And Gadadhara followed till he crossed the line of Puri, no? the border. Officially, he broke his vow. So Mahaprabhu stopped him and said, okay, you're happy now? You broke your vow. You made your point. He may want to make a point. You made your point. Now return to Puri, please. And he started, and eventually Gadadhara returns to Puri. He faints, and Mahaprabhu continues walking to Vrindavan. But of course, Mahaprabhu returns from Vrindavan relatively quickly. So it's not that long stay there. We will speak about these days. But the point is, he accepted Kshetra sannyas. Somehow he broke the vow. But this is the background to that. So Mahaprabhu asked Gadadhara, please stay in this place, Tota Gopinath. It's a garden, very beautiful place. If you go to Jagannath Puri, that's a very, very, very nice place. There's a beautiful garden there as well. Jameshwara Tota, also called. Jameshwara is one name of Mahadev, Shiva. So he's also residing on that area. So it is said that on a daily basis, Mahaprabhu used to go there to have darshan of Gopinath. We'll share the darshan in a few minutes with you. So it is said that when Mahaprabhu went to Jagannath Mandir, to the temple of Sri Jagannath, and have darshan of Jagannath, we have to bear in mind in which mood he was. So internally, Mahaprabhu was in Radha Bhav. So when he was seeing Jagannath along with Baladev and Subhadra, Mahaprabhu in the mood of Sri Radha felt like, how to say, he was not that happy. Because Baladev is who? Dauji, Krishna's elder brother. So in front of the elder brother, Sri Radha cannot fully express herself towards Krishna. And Subhadra is not even in Braja Lila. Subhadra appears after that, as we know. So it has more to do with Krishna being with Balaram and Subhadra in Kurukshetra, as we spoke today. So when Sri Radha, as we say today in the morning, she goes to Kurukshetra for the solar eclipse, sees Krishna, but Subhadra is there, Balaram is there, and all this royal retinue is there. So Sri Radha doesn't feel fully like, so she experienced a very intense separation, not being able to unite with Krishna she will like. And it is said that then Mahaprabhu goes, after going to Jagannath Mandir, goes to Gambhira, when it is said that she feels like Krishna in Vrindavan, like Radha in Vrindavan, when Krishna is no longer in Vrindavan, in separation. Remember, it's Sri Radha in separation. But when Mahaprabhu goes to Tota Gopinath in Radha Bhav, he feels meeting with Krishna. So he found so much happiness there. With Jagannath, she feels, I'm in Kurukshetra here. When he goes to Gambhira, she feels Krishna's in Mathura, I'm in Vrindavan. All these are different like flavors of separation, all the different nuances of Radha Bhav in separation. That's the entry point to union. And then when Mahaprabhu and Radha Bhav goes to Tota Gopinath, then he finds, here is my Gopinath. Mahaprabhu and Radha Bhav feeling like this. So he finds some relief in Tota Gopinath there. I have come to Vrindavan. Krishna is in Vrindavan. My Prananath is here. Do you have the picture there? I would like to share you one picture of the deity for those who have not been there. I mean, you have to have this darshan. So we'll see that on what Gopinath is in the center of the altar. Shamananda can do some darshan, moving darshan there. So there we see Gopinath in the center of the altar. And on one side, we have Sri Radha on Gopinath's left side. And on the other side, we find Lalita. And as we will see, interestingly, the three of them are black. as you can see. Gopinath, pictures are not allowed in Tota Gopinath. So we owe some credit to whoever took the picture in a clandestine way. And I know those are not allowed because once we were there and one devotee, without knowing, picked the camera and the pujari started to scream like nothing.
The picture from that?
No. No, there was no chance of any picture. That was a camera like this and it was over. So here we have Gopinath in the center, and on one side Sri Radha, and on one side Lalita, all of them in black, interestingly. Because it is said that both Radha, I mean, of course, with Krishna, it's natural he will be blackish, but what about Radha and Lalita? So it is said that due to deep absorption in Krishna, sometimes they assume this particular complexion, tadatmya, this is called. For example, after Rasa Lila, or during Rasa Lila, when Krishna disappears, the gopis at one point not only, it is say, Tanmanaskas, Tadalapas, Tadvichestas, Tadadmika, Tadgunami Bagayantyon, and Magaranisas. So the gopis start to think about Krishna, start to speak about Krishna, start to imitate the pastimes of Krishna, and at one point they felt themselves Krishna in that absorption, and they started to develop the same hue of Krishna. So in some moments this is happening, as we will find sometimes deities of Krishna being white also. You have seen some of them. Radha and Krishna, the two are white, because in that case it's say Krishna is so absorbed in meditating on Sri Radha that sometimes her own complexion will come there. Sometimes even Sri Radha, in the mood of deep tadatmya absorption in Krishna, she will not only acquire this particular complexion, but also like take a flute, another the Trivanga posture, curve, crooked in three, and in the same way. So this is the mood that is prevalent in Tota Gopinath when you see Radha and Lalita. So now, interestingly, you may have seen the picture. I don't know if you noticed that. Let's see how good of observers you are. What else did you see there that was really worthy of attention? Apart from the fact, no, you know that. Hopefully nobody cared what you said. So apart from the fact that Radha and Lalita are black complexion, what else have you seen there? Reply as if Bhakti Shakti didn't say that. Too late, right? What to do? So as Bhakti Shakti says, Gopinath is, we could say, the only deity of Krishna who appears in Padmasana. Padmasana means like this: sit cross-legged and not standing like usual. Krishna is curved, you say, crooked in three forms, standing, but he's sitting on the floor with the cross-legged. So the question may be, what's the background of that? So there's an interesting story in that connection, and in connection to Gadadhara Pandita, of course. So we'll share it with your permission. So this has to do with Gadadhara Pandit's last years, basically. So this is when Mahaprabhu left this world. Here we are going again a little bit forward of our daily narration in Puri. So Mahaprabhu left his world when he was 48 years old. So at that point, Gadadhara Pandit was 47, again, 1 year less. And he remained in this world, I think, like 10 or 11 months only. He was not able to tolerate the separation from Mahaprabhu. And for some reason, we will see, only for some reason he remained in this world, also, with some missions that was ascribed to him. So it is said that although he had 47 years old, due to, he was, how do you say in English, emaciated by separation. So he seemed like if he were like, whatever, 125 years or something. Totally like curved and like in separation, burning in separation. And so it is said that he started to curve, you say, like this or what? Stoop. Okay. So when you see Tota Gopinath and it's on Padmasana, he's already relatively big. So you can imagine if that deity will be standing, that will be really big. And the point is that originally Tota Gopinath was not in Padmasana. Originally Tota Gopinath was standing as usual. Krishna crooked in three parts, standing, playing the flute. So he was relatively tall. But Gadadhara Pandit became so much emaciated and consumed by the fire of separation that and he was the pujari of Tota Gopinath. He was daily worshipping by the service. Mahaprabhu gave that service to him. And he was not able to properly attend the deity. He was not able to reach and put a garland to Tota Gopinath. So at one point he reached this conclusion: I'm not anymore able to continue this seva to Thakurji. So I will organize for someone else to do that. Someone taller, if you will. Someone who will be able to do everything properly. I'm too much emaciated and consumed. So he decided that one night without telling that to anyone. So he goes to sleep and dream comes again. So in the dream, Tota Gopinath appears and asks Gadadhara, why are you leaving me? No. Why are you stopping my seva? No, I want you to be my sevaka. No. And Gadadhara say, but Prabhu, look at me. I cannot even put your garland to you. I'm totally useless already for performing this service. So please accept someone else. So Gopinath said, no, only you. And if the problem is that you are not able to reach me to properly put the garland, no problem. You remain as you are. I will make the adjustments. So to say the next day Gadadhara wakes up, goes to the altar, to the Gopinath is seated in Padmasana to facilitate, to receive the service of his beloved Pujari. So Sri Tota Gopinath Ki Jai. It is said that in connection to this, of course, some other reason that is being given after Gadadhar Pandit passed away from this world. For a moment, I will go forward again. The seva of Tota Gopinath was given to another devotee called Mamu Thakur, who at that time had like 80 years or so. He was an old Vaishnava. And sometimes there are some people who say that actually Tota Gopinath went in Padmasana for Mamu Thakur because he was quite old also. But generally their reasoning in this way is like, no, it cannot happen. I mean, it cannot happen. It can happen, but the main point here is Sri Krishna will only go down in front of Sri Radha. With Sri Radha and Gaur-lila, Gadadhara. So only Krishna, as we said the other day, Dehi Pada Palapamudara. Krishna may be with so many gopis, doing so many things, but only he puts his head on the ground at the feet of Sri Radha, nobody else. So this is the spirit of this lila. Krishna himself is going down to receive the service of Sri Radha, Sri Gadadhara Pandit in this case. And interestingly, if one goes there nowadays, especially there's one morning darshan, like 7 a.m. or something, another extra feature for Tota Gopinath, because again, I'm going forward here for a minute, in connection to Mahaprabhu's passing away from this world. There are different theories about how Mahaprabhu passed away. Some will say that he entered the ocean in Puri. Some will say that he entered the deity of Jagannath. But the most, I would say, accepted theory is that he merged into the deity of Tota Gopinath. So in one sense, we have Mahaprabhu there also. So in the morning, there's one darshan that they give, and you can see like a little like golden line on the, how do you call this part? Knee. On the right knee of Gopinath. Maybe giving a good dakshina also in between. You can have the darshan. And it is said that on that line is that Mahaprabhu entered. Like the golden line represents here the golden Lord enter into the deity worshipped by Gadadhar himself. So it shows how much Mahaprabhu was fond of Gadadhar. Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions that when Mahaprabhu disappeared from this world, that his vision, like he's seated He sat. Sorry. In the asana that Gadadhara used to give Bhagavatam classes, and from there he became one, if you will, with Gopinath also. So since we mentioned this asana and Gadadhara Pandit giving classes, also this is some important feature that happened on a daily basis in this Tota Gopinath temple, which is what? Bhagavatam classes, morning Bhagavatam classes. We know this morning Bhagavatam classes. That happens because Gadadhara Pandit was giving these classes on a daily basis to Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. Gadadhara Pandit again is Sri Radha herself giving Bhagavat class to Krishna. No? Krishna is going and taking lessons from Sri Radha. What's the meaning of the Bhagavat? Because the Bhagavatam, as my Guru Maharaj will say, it's not about Krishna. It's about love for Krishna. And of course, when you speak about love for Krishna, then you have Krishna for sure. You can speak about Krishna without love for Krishna, you don't have either of them. And when you go to love for Krishna, Krishna is included in the equation, if you will. So on a daily basis, Gadadhara Pandit will recite, and this happens eternally in Nitya Navadip as well, not only in Puri, but in Nitya Navadip, daily Bhagavatam class and Krishna. I mean, Sisha Guru Nath Radhikar being the Sri Radha is Krishna's guru, basically, in the school of love. So in the Gaur Lila, this continues in this way. Sri Radha's Gadadhar instructs Mahaprabhu. But interestingly, what is mentioned is that the main topics that Gadadhar will speak in his Bhagavat classes were not necessarily the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam and the Rasa Panchadhyaya, Rasa Lila, and all these intimate Madhurya-like sections, but Prahlad Charit, Dhruva Charit. No? Charit means like the attributes of Prahlad and Dhruva. These sections that sometimes are seen as, I mean, great, incredible, but not so high, if you will, in comparison to Braja Lila. So one may ask, like, why? I mean, why Prahlad and Dhruva Charit? I mean, Gadadhar is giving class to Mahaprabhu. You may imagine this must be the topmost esoteric thing on earth. What might they be speaking about? And they are speaking about Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruva Maharaj, who generally is seen as, again, a more preliminary section that prepares ourselves to enter into the ultimate like idea of the Bhagavatam. And of course, one could say on one level there are different interpretations for this. On one level, Mahaprabhu and Gadadhar himself are teaching us, if you want the real thing, first you have to go through all these things who are also part of the real thing. Now we have been speaking some weeks ago in North Carolina about Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prayers to Nrsimhadev in the context of Raganuga Bhakti. How important is all that Prahlad represents for us to create a foundation for our Raganuga Bhakti temple. Prahlad Maharaj represents fearlessness, abhay, universal compassion, selflessness, absence of enjoying spirit. So all those things have to be there as a foundation to the temple. Maybe you see a temple and you don't see the foundation. So you may not appreciate that, but you know, I mean, there has to be a foundation. If not, we wouldn't remain alive here now. So similarly, sometimes it is said, Prahlad Maharaj represents Santa Rasa, and these attributes had to do with Santa Rasa. And Mahaprabhu came to give Tirobhava, Dasya Sakya Vatsalya Madhurya, not Santa Rasa. So Santa Rasa is out of the equation, but actually it's not out of the equation altogether. It's not just operative, playing itself out in the Leela, but it's there as a foundation to the whole Leela. You follow? You don't see that in the Leela, as you don't see the foundation of the flat, no? But it's there somehow. You follow? So one will say, okay, that's the reason why they were speaking Prahlad Charit, Dhruva Charit, to instruct us on that foundational level. And okay, but in a higher way, in a higher level, there's another reason why Prahlad was speaking hundreds of times, it is said, hundreds of times, this Prahlad Charit. I remember seeing one video, maybe you have seen that, that's nice, from Srila Bhakti Vallabh Tirtha Maharaj. He was describing how Prahlad Maharaj will describe Gadadhara Pandit will describe Prahlad Charit to Mahaprabhu one time, and Mahaprabhu will say, again. So he will recite the second time, Mahaprabhu will say, again. And he will recite hundreds of times the same, quote unquote, story. And then Bhaktivala Tirtha Maharaj says, at this point was almost screaming and say, if you heard this story of Prahlad once or twice and you think, I already know that, tell me something new, you have never heard the story of Prahlad yet. You don't have a clue about that. Mahaprabhu was hearing and retasting that hundreds of times again. So that's another point he's making there. Do not think, I already know 7th canto, Prahlad Charit. Yeah. Let's go to the 10th canto. Oh, I already know 10th canto. What else is there available? I'm ready for more. Mahaprabhu will say, again, please, again. Humbly crying, imploring Gadadhara one more time. And he's finding so much newer layers of meaning in those same sections. So, but on a higher level, this is quite intimately connected with what Mahaprabhu is all about internally. Mahaprabhu is Krishna tasting Radha Bhav. So what does imply to taste Radha Bhav means to taste all that Radha's daily experience implies. And as we spoke recently, I think on the class, our lecture on Brahma Gita last Monday, or maybe the previous Monday, the prem of Sri Radha and the prem in itself, especially the one in Parakiya, is really nourished by obstacles. The nature of prem, says the Prem Samput, is that whatever obstacles come on the way, prem fits on them. Without prem, obstacles may discourage us. Oh, this happened. Oh, I won't chant rounds today. I'm depressed, or whatever. But if you have prem, you have the greatest obstacles on earth, and all of them are representing further impetus to progress towards your goal. So in the daily life of Sri Radha, there are so many obstacles, starting at home. Jatila, Kutila, Avimanju, a whole bunch of dysfunctional fellows. Jatila means crooked. And Jata means in Sanskrit when you have like you don't comb your head if you have long hair. You don't comb your head. At one point, it becomes a Jata. It means like a dreadlock. Mm-hmm. So, how do you call that? Entangled. Yeah, like so. Jatila means someone whose mind is like that. Dreadlock-like mind. No? Entangled. And Kutila means crooked. Ayeri bhagatim premna swabhava Kutila. So Kutila means crooked, like a crooked mentality. And Abhimanju also means someone who has lots of Abhiman. Abhiman means like, ego. I'm this and want that, and always thinking I want to expand my cattle, I want to have more and more cows and more wealth. And so a whole bunch of dysfunctional fellows in the daily life of Sri Radha. And of course, all of them opposed, of course, not knowing or suspecting, I will say, that she has some connection with Krishna. So constantly looking on them, constantly on her, and on them, and distrusting her completely over and over and over again. So on a daily basis, at the same time, she has to meet Krishna. I mean, she cannot survive without meeting him. But she has to sort all these obstacles on a daily basis and to find a new idea, a new excuse. We are being thrown to Mexico. So. Jagannath Puri. Okay, no problem. Some extra spice to the masala. So she has to sort out all these daily obstacles in order to meet Krishna. She has to find a good reason, quote unquote, to go out of the house and explain herself why she was late every single day of her life in such a way that she's never caught. So it's a constant struggle, but a struggle in a healthy struggle, increasing her longing and facilitating eventually her meeting with Krishna. So my point here is that said, Mahaprabhu is Krishna and Radha. So he wants to taste Radha, means to go through all these experiences that she herself goes through. So in order to help him to empathize with that, the other Pandit, Radha herself, will narrate Prahlad Charit, for example. Why? Because Prahlad had to go through so many obstacles. As a 5-year-old boy, try to imagine, your father wanted to kill you in so many ways. You can easily be a traumatized fellow forever. But no, Prahlad didn't have that idea. He just, so many obstacles on a daily basis. I won't enter into the details. You know the story of Prahlad. So, but Mahaprabhu was hearing them from the perspective of Radha Bhav. She was trying to go through all these many obstacles and hearing about someone else who is going through that experience. So you find some empathy, some affective empathy, not only cognitive empathy. And similarly with Dhruva, he was such a young boy and went to the forest to practice strong, heavy tapasya and going through it. Very much, try to imagine a little boy. Try to imagine Radha Giridhari Christina tells you in 2-3 years, I'm going to the forest to meditate. I have some goal in mind and I need to attain that. So I will go to the forest. I mean, so the point is all these stories have to do with this, so many obstacles, but so much determination to go through those obstacles. So Mahaprabhu was hearing them in a highest sense from the lens of Sri Radha Bhava and all the things that she has to go through and so on. So all this daily Bhagavad Katha is happening eternally there. And that's why we say Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, which means we are to Nityam, eternally, Bhagavat Sevaya, to serve the Bhagavata eternally. Eternally means eternally. They will have those morning Bhagavat classes in Nityananda. So better you are ready. For those classes, I mean, what must it be to go to a class of Bhagavatam by Gadadhara Pandit? And the audience is Nityananda, Mahaprabhu, Srivas Pandit, and you. In the midst of that. And someone will say, no, go to Gaur Lila is not so exciting. Are you sure? Just go to one of those classes and then tell me that's not exciting. I mean, that's incredible. So it is saying that in this way, Mahaprabhu will go and hear the particular daily class on Gadadhara, and whatever insights came to him, then he will go to Gambhira, to his own room, and do his homework there, basically. Like an actor. An actor will, how do you say in English? Do rehearsal, like practice, whatever he has to perform officially on the stage. Then after proper rehearsal, he practice or hearing, being taught how to do stuff, then he will enter in the main stage, limelight, and the whole issue. So Mahaprabhu in the same way, he's hearing the Bhagavatam from Gadadhar, and then he will present the result of that Shravan in his own stage called Gambhira, his room where he stayed. So before finishing, one more thing I would like to share you, going back to Gadadhar Pandits before he left this world. I told you that Mahaprabhu left this world at one particular point, and Gadadhar remained for 11 months or so, and with some reason in particular, because if not for him, he was not able to sustain his life. This is mainly describing Bhakti Ratnakar, and it is said that he remained in this world only to teach Srimad Bhagavatam to Srinivasacharya. He knew about this, and Srinivasacharya, along with Shyamananda Pandit and Narottam Das Thakur, these three were like, if you will, the extended selves of Gadadhar, Nityananda, Advaita, Mahaprabhu, all this eternal retinue of the Gaur Lila. These three were like an extended expression of them that will continue with the waves established by Panchatattva, if you will. So it is say that, again, at this point, Gadadhara was in deep separation of Mahaprabhu, totally emaciated, more and more and more and more. And he just remained alive with the purpose. Srinivas is coming. So Srinivas eventually arrives, to make a long story short. Eventually, Srinivas Acharya arrives to Jagannath Puri with the intention, may Gadadhara teach me Bhagavatam. Remember, he's the Bhagavatam speaker par excellence. And he arrives to Gadadhara and he finds Gadadhara in deep separation mood from Mahaprabhu, almost about to leave his body. Totally emaciated, as we mentioned. Mahaprabhu had already left. And Gadadhara knew Srinivas is coming, so he was making a strong effort to remain alive. So when Srinivas comes, he asks Gadadhara, Pandit, please, I'm coming here. I know you were waiting for me. So I deeply appreciate that. Please teach me the Bhagavad. So when he goes to the copy of the Bhagavatam that Gadadhara had, which was not a printed book at those times, but was like written on palm leaves, and the whole system is not just writing like this. You have to, how do you say?
Inscribe.
Sorry?
Inscribe.
Is inscribe?
Inscribe.
You say like this, that first you have to do and then you put the ink. Yeah, okay. So that takes some time. That's the point. Nowadays you send the PDF and in 10 seconds you have the whole Bhagavatam there. But in that time, there were another dynamics. So he goes to Gadadhar Pandit's Bhagavatam in order, we will start the teaching. But he finds that Gadadhar Pandit's pages, if you will, were empty. There was no Bhagavatam, apparently. And why it is so? Because it is said that Gadadhar Pandit, when he used to read Bhagavatam, recite Bhagavatam, profuse tears, torrential tears came from his eyes, and the whole ink of the whole book was totally disappeared. So it seems that there was nothing in the Bhagavatam, but that was the real essence of the Bhagavatam. Again, the fullness of emptiness. No? There's nothing, but there is everything there. As I was reciting today, one very nice pranam mantra composed by Srila Bhakti-Rakshakshar Goswami to Sri Gadadhara. He says, Nilam bodhi tate sadasa viraha kshipambitam bandhavam. He describes Gadadhara at the shores of the ocean in Puri, in Tota Gopinath, giving his life back to his friend. In the context of Mahaprabhu being fainted in separation, and Gadadhara will bring him back to life. How? Srimad Bhagavati Katam Adiraya Sanjeevayam Bhattiya. He will speak to him Srimad Bhagavatam. He will give him Srimad Bhagavati Katam Adiraya. Kata of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is like Madira. Madira means wine. So it's like a wine in the sense of it's intoxicating. And at the same time, it says Sanjeevani. Madiraya Sanjeevani. Sanjeevani is like an Ayurvedic term of this type of herbs that bring you back to life, like in the Ramayana when Hanuman has to bring a particular herb and he brings the whole mountain just in case to bring Lakshman back to life. And there are some particular herbs that act as Sanjeevani, which means life givers. So this Bhagavati Katha that Gadadhara spoke to Mahaprabhu was, interestingly, giver of life and intoxicating. So due to intoxication, he will faint, and giver of life, he will come back. But he will faint again, and he will come back. Tibata Bhagavatam Rasam Malaya. That's what the Bhagavatam says in the very beginning. Drink this Bhagavatam Alayam. Alayam is even in a post-liberated state. Forever drink this Bhagavatam, which is Sukha Mukha Drava Samjutam. Sukha Mukha Mrita Drava Samjutam, which is condensed nectar and very intoxicating, which the implication is, the commentators say, but I will drink that and it's so intoxicated, I will pass out. Pass out? Yeah. So what to do? And the Bhagavatam will say, whenever you wake up, take a second cup. Do you say in English the house invites or something like this? On the house. When you go to a bar and they say, on the house. Parampara is Sponsoring this. On the house. The second one. Third, you faint again. Third one, on the house. And eternally you will be on the house. No, you will be there. In the house, on the house. So that's the nature of this Bhagavati Katha Madhirayasan Jiva Jambati. Yeah, and then let's say Srimad Bhagavatam Sadasanayana Shrupayanai Pujayam. What happens when Gadadhara is giving this elixir, intoxicating wine to Mahaprabhu? Srimad Bhagavatam Sadasanayana Ashrupayanai Pujayam. As some people do puja to the Bhagavatam sometime before a Bhagavat recital, the book is there, and someone will offer incense and lamp, implying this Bhagavatam is not different from Bhagavan. It's like worshipping a deity. Before opening the book and starting the recitation, and you offer water with the conch shell and so on. Gadadhara will do artik or puja to the Bhagavatam while reading it, but in a particular different way. Now, there was no need for artik plate and all this stuff. All the paraphernalia was organically included in him. So instead of offering water with the conch shell, tears will come from his eyes. No? That was the water of the puja. Now, the lamp was the fire, the flame of his heart, and the passionate love for the. And in this way, every single element of the arti was represented in his own ecstatic expressions. So Srila Semanas will say, in this way, he worshipped the Bhagavatam with tears, profuse tears of love, through Payanai Pujajam, and therefore he concludes with a very poetic line, Goswami Prabharo Gadadhara Vibhur Bhuyat Madhika Kati. May I enter into the current of that, the best of Goswamis, Sri Gadadhara Prabhu. He gives this water-like example, no? So many tears like cascades are coming from his eyes. And he says, may I enter that current forever. His tears of love towards the Bhagavatam, may I enter into that current and swim there for eternity. The best of the Goswamis, Sri Gadadhara Prabhu. So going back to the story, Srinivasacharya finds this emptiness and fullness simultaneously in the pages of Gadadhara's Bhagavatam. There's nothing written there. It's impossible to read because all the ink has disappeared. But all the tears of love are inscribed there in the pages. So he says, okay, I'll have to get a new copy of the Bhagavatam. And again, this was not so easy. It's not just send me a PDF, send me to WeTransfer, Dropbox as quick as possible. But he had to go from Puri to Navadvip to have someone make a copy of the Bhagavatam, which again took some days. And he had to wait for that. And he knew in the midst of that, I don't know, Gadadhara is about to leave his body at any moment. There was this type of pressure in him. No? And I would really like to learn Bhagavad from him. So Srinivasacharya remains there for some weeks waiting for the Bhagavatam, which is made, and then returns from Navadvip to Puri, which again, all that takes some time. It's a long journey. Not that long, but again, it's not a few days. So when he returns almost running, desperate to Puri, he found that the devotees are somehow celebrating something and mourning at the same time. So he asks, what's happened? And they say, Sri Gadadhara Prabhu has left this world just today. You can imagine. No? So Gadadhara Pandit left in this moment. He was not able to contain his separation from Mahaprabhu more. And Srinivasacharya was, I will continue with a little bit of the story of Srinivasacharya in this context. So Srinivasacharya at this point becomes like desperate, and he himself falls into deep separation. So he doesn't know what to do with his life, basically. And he just goes running to Vrindavan, which again, is not that close. But he just goes running, whatever it takes, desperate, thinking, I'll take shelter in Rupa Goswami. He's like the next of like shelter that I can conceive after Gadadhara Pandit has left this world. Because all these most of the associates of Mahaprabhu were already leaving one after another. So this three, Srinivasa, Mananda, Narottam, the three of them are really drenched into this spirit of separation, because many of them have not met Mahaprabhu personally, or most of their associates, but just came there right after they left. So try to imagine that idea. You are born and Mahaprabhu just left this world. And many of his associates like this. Gadadhara Pandit was just about to teach me Bhagavatam, he left this world in this way. So Srinivas goes like mad, running and crying to Vrindavan from Puri with all that it took. And when he arrived finally to Vrindavan, trying to take shelter in Srila Rupa Goswami, he finds that the devotees are celebrating something. So he asks, what's happened? What are you celebrating? Srila Rupa Goswami has just passed away from this world. So you can imagine, that was just already too much for Srinivasa. So he just collapsed there in Braj. He fainted, he lost consciousness, said, I'm totally devastated. You know what I mean? I need to say that after he was totally losing consciousness in Braj, when he awoke, he found himself in one special place in Vrindavan, which was in the school that Srila Jiva Goswami had founded in Vrindavan. And that Srila Jiva Goswami was the youngest of the 6 Goswamis. So he still was alive for a considerable period of time. And he had the school of Siddhanta philosophy in Vrindavan, Radha Damodar temple. So when he awoke, he found himself under the shelter of Srila Jiva Goswami. And there is what he was in deep connection with his 2 other, if you will, eternal friends like Shyamananda Pandit and Narottam Thakur. Of course, a whole different series of lectures should be done in connection with the 3 of them. So we won't enter into detail, but all this is connected again with Srila Gadadhara Pandit's disappearance from this world. That he tried to maintain some moments more alive to share what he had with Srinivas, and he shared indeed. We shouldn't feel out. That's what the sad end of the movie, and Srinivas was cursed or nothing like that. I mean, he really received a deep shot of Bhagavat in the form of separation from Gadadhara and all that. And he was carried by that impulse eventually to Vrindavan and under the shelter of Srila Jiva Goswami. I mean, you can have a greatest Bhagavad teacher than Jiva Goswami as well. So somehow or other, the Lord worked his ways in mysterious ways or something like this. So in this way, some words we wanted to share today about Sri Gadadhara Pandit, which in himself is, we could say, one of the most mysterious, cryptic, confidential, esoteric personalities in the Gaur Lila, and ultimately, as we say today, the most crucial and fundamental figure for the whole Gaur Lila to make sense and to be successful. So today we are praying that we may receive his blessings on his Tirobhava, his disappearance day, praying for a drop, a speck of dust from his lotus feet of his grace, so we may properly engage in the service of Guru, Vaishnavas, and develop this healthy identification with service necessity, ultimately converging into the realm with Gaur, Gadadhara, and his associates are there with full need of assistance and service, and we will have so many things to offer from our side for the rest of forever, as we have been saying. Srila Gadadhara Pandit ki jai, Tirobhava Mahotsava Tithi Sri Gadadhara Prabhu ki jai. So, some words. I don't know if anyone has any questions, something you may like to ask, to share.
I have a question.
Who is first?
Maybe first.
We'll go to all of them. Sakyarati.
I wanted to ask you because I heard that in your Mangala Charan today you added some verses.
Again, sorry? I added some verses
in your Mangala Charan
today. Yeah, I added the one that I just played one moment before, the one that Srila Siddha Maharaj wrote to Gadadhara Pandit. Today in the evening. Yeah, I added that mantra. Nelam Bodhi Tati Sada, the one that I explained just now, that Srila Siddha Maharaj. That one and one more line, another one that is from the Anand Chandra Goswami's called Govinda Archana Padati. that says Gadadhara Namastuvyam Yasya Goranga Jivanam, which basically is I offer my pranam to Gadadhara Pandit, whose life and soul is Sri Gauranga. Yeah, my Guru Maharaj gave me that line and mantra to also recite. I think those were the only two additions, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, sometimes some new inspiration may come in the Mangala Chant, but I think those were the only two. The other were the classical ones. That was a question. Haricharan, you have a question?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I don't know so much about these matters, maybe because I'm very ignorant, but about the Nitya Lila of Gauranga
Okay.
in, so to say, Gauraloka. He is Nimai Vishvambara, and he has not taken sannyas, and he has not met Ramananda Roy, and or
I mean, yes, they are there already. I mean, in that lila, they do not meet at any point because they are already there. No, the Nitya Lila has not the chronological unfolding that we find on earth. On earth, the associates appear and they get to know each other. Mahaprabhu is born. He's not a devotee first. He's a pandit, then accepts initiation. Krishna in Vrindavan, similar. He's born from Jashoda. At one point, he meets with Madhumangal, and like different things take place on earth because the lila on earth is more Nara lila even than Golok. So it shows some added features like, again, chronological unfolding and so on. But in the Nitya lila, which is a permanent condition, all those elements are already there. It's not that Krishna is growing or meeting for the first time, however, and the same applies to the Gaur Lila. The dynamics in the Nitya Lila, Nitya Navadvip, which is called generally Nitya Navadvip, or Golok Navadvip, if you will. All of the associates are there. Ramananda, Swarup, all of the ones that even appear in other places outside of Navadvip on earth, all of them are there in Navadvip.
Narottam Das and his associates there?
Yeah, for sure. So you should go. You must imagine how exciting association you will have there. All of them in this morning class of Bhagavatam. I just mentioned a few today. Huh? Nityananda, Srivas, Mahaprabhu, Gadadhara, and you, but I mean, the whole Parampara will be there. So many others. So that must be an exciting class.
Very interesting. I was thinking this during the class. I don't know exactly how to formulate it, but does Mahaprabhu also have like existential crisis there, and how can he taste Radha Bhava there if he has not had this dynamic with Gadadhara Pandit that they're kind of what you were talking about?
Well, that dynamic is there on some level. Of course, again, Gadadhara Pandit is giving daily Bhagavatam classes. And it is mentioned, I'm summarizing because they are very interesting questions and they deserve a whole second Bulgarian retreat or something. We can move all to Austria and continue there if you want. So Maharaj will be surprised, but I will be happy. I'm coming with an extra 30 devotees, so don't problem. But the point is that in one sense, we say that Mahaprabhu on earth was tasting Radha Bhav, and he was tasting in higher and higher levels. And sometimes it is said at the end of his Leela on earth, he finally tasted the fullness of Radha Bhav. My Guru Maharaj would like to say he connects that with the last verse of Sikshastakam, which we know it, Splitsha Bapadaratam Pinashtumam and so on. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says this verse, commenting on this verse, Krishnadas Kaviraj says this verse was spoken by Sri Radha herself. So the point that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami makes is Mahaprabhu is speaking the verse, but Krishna says Radha spoke the verse, which means he did it. Mahaprabhu fully entered into Radha Bhava and spoke this verse. And after saying that, almost Chaitanya Charitamrita finishes. Like close the curtain, closes. Mahaprabhu is successful. Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki jai. But the point is, strictly speaking, on another side, we could say, but Radha Bhav is an endless ocean. So you can never taste it fully. And that's the main, we could say from our perspective, that's the main reason for an eternal Nitya Navadvip. Because in the Nitya Navadvip, Mahaprabhu is eternally dedicated to that purpose. He's tasting Radha Bhav in Nitya Navadvip. It's not that that only happens on earth. And I mean, if you read all the descriptions of the Nitya Leela in Navadvip, Mahaprabhu is tasting Radha Bhav continuously. So again, the project has no end. It's not at the point Mahaprabhu said, okay, now I tasted Radha Bhav completely. There's nothing more to be tasted. I mean, if you say that, is you have no clue what's Radha Bhav, because that's constantly expanding and increasing. So he continues doing that in the Nitya Leela. I mean, he's doing that forever without beginning. But when he comes on earth, that's explained in this particular way. It seems like at one point that began. It's a way of explaining something for also our benefit. At one point, Krishna said, I want to taste Radha Bhav. And actually, at the same point, he's tasting that eternally, Nitya Navadvip. So it's a way of showing what's the background of Mahaprabhu, Krishna wanting to taste Radha Bhav. So that may take the form at one point in time on earth, but that's happening at the same time eternally in Golok Navadvip. So we have to learn to accommodate those notions also. So again, another reason to go to Nitya Navadvip. Very exciting prospect there. And every time there's kirtan, Mahaprabhu goes in Radha Bhav to a particular lila in Braja Lila, and all the different associates of Mahaprabhu in their respective moods, they travel with him to Braja Lila with him there in their respective positions of service. And this way, you enter into Gaur Lila, you immerse Gaur Lila, emerge in Krishna Lila, go deep into Gaur Lila, Krishna Lila, appear in Gaur Lila, and so.
Can I ask another question?
Yes.
Which is most important or most merciful, the appearance day or the disappearance day of a great personality?
Well, in one sense, of course, we do not like to express in terms of this is better or this is worse or something like this. The 2 days are generally celebrated as much as we know of them, which day they were. And we generally celebrate both of them. But generally, a special emphasis is put on the disappearance day. And of course, that may be even especially connected to, because that may evoke certain particular feelings of separation from that personality. And for us, separation is a way to union, basically. And also that implies this idea that they are disappearing, which means they are disappearing from our side, but they are appearing somewhere else. So that disappearance lila somehow is pointing to that other place where they are appearing, if you will. In the case of eternal associates, we will say they are already there, but it's a way of speaking about that. That they are appearing somewhere else, which it's pointing to the place where we should be appearing at some point, basically, after our disappearance, if you will. If it's not in this lifetime, whenever it has to be, but it's pointing to the goal to attain. But of course, the two of them are very important. And sometimes it's not that today we chose to concentrate more on the last days of Gadadhara, but sometimes in appearance or disappearance of one personality, when Harikata is spoken, not necessarily it's a concentration of appearance or disappearance. Sometimes the glories of that personality are extolled. Okay, it seems Prasadam is about to be ready. I don't know if there's any last question before closing. Oh, yes.
You gave the example with Dhruva Maharaj. But then it came to my mind that in a way his grandfather is a very special personality, so it's not a surprise that his grandson will do such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And my question related to it is, Dhruva Maharaj had the chance to directly communicate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead?
Dhruva Maharaj.
Yeah.
Well, as the Bhagavatam narrates, Dhruva Maharaj in the beginning, he's more of an example of, we could say, Sakama Bhakta, which goes to the forest just to take revenge. I mean,
Yeah.
of the insult he felt towards him and his mother Suniti. Long story. Fourth canto of the Bhagavatam, where his father was Uttanapada, had on his lap. He had two wives, Surucha and Suniti. So he had the son of Surucha on his lap, and Surucha was the most satisfying wife to him. The name itself, it says Suruchi. Suruchi means very pleasurable. And Dhruva's mother was called Suniti, which is very correct, which is not that pleasurable generally. So very correct, very chaste, and the king was not that satisfied with her on one level. So she was not biased towards Suruchi and her son. So she had her on his lap, and Dhruva wanted to jump into the other side of the lap, but Suruchi said, "Get down from there. No, you are nobody. No, my son is the favorite of the king," because and so on. Yeah. And Uttanapada was like, didn't say anything basically. So Dhruva took that as an insult, and he went in brief words to the forest and started to execute deep tapasya, but actually wanted to have a kingdom much more powerful than his father.
He met Narada Muni.
Yeah, I'm going.
Before he's starting up.
I'm reaching there. Yeah. Of course, in the context, he went there with that intention. I want a kingdom. He didn't have a spiritual goal in mind.
No.
But eventually Narada Muni came, and he gave a mantra to him. And Narada Muni said, "You want to? Okay, chant this mantra. Okay, if you want whatever you want, you chant this mantra." And he didn't say that's mundane. You have to. No, okay, you want that. Narada Muni is expert in all these things with Mrigari and Valmiki, all these cases. So Dhruva started to chant the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And by invoking this mantra, it is said that he was eventually purified to such a point that he had darshan of Bhagavan in the forest.
But then he appeared and he touched him with the concha, and then he got all.
Exactly. So he got purified from his mundane desire, and he pronounced these prayers like, I thought I was looking for something great. It was just a piece of glass. Now I realized it was the real jewel, and so on. So we could say that, and at that point, Dhruva was like awakened to bhakti, if you will, no? By contact with Narada, and then he had the darshan of Bhagavan and so on.
So my question is related to this topic. First of all, he had in a way, he got a lot of recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
So he was able to meet the Supreme Personality, meaning that Brahma was his grandfather, and he had a Vaishnava guru, and he was able to have a direct communication with the Supreme Lord. But still, this means that he is somehow part of the close circle of the Lord, because he's a relative of Brahma, who is in a way his expression.
Yeah, I mean, Brahma is a Sakama Bhakta at the same time. Brahma is considered generally, of course, there are different things we can say. So Dhruva generally represents this this example of someone who is a progressive, like he's in progress, work in progress Bhakta. So at one point, as you say, he had good connections. It's not what you know, but who you know. So Brahma was there, Narada was there. And even he was not aware of certain things. That's a point, no? Like, even if you are not aware, if good connections are there, eventually the grace of that association will take the form that you realize that, oh, I'm no longer interested in this thing I wanted, and now I just want to see Bhagavan again in this case, no? Like, all the kingdom and all the stuff is totally, no? So it's an example for us. But of course, being a boy in the jungle and all this stuff, mainly these obstacles were the ones that made Mahaprabhu think, in Radha Bhava. Oh, Dhruva is going through all these difficulties as a boy and accepting all this. Okay, just by the noise and the smell, I think prasad is almost to be served and by the plates here. So we'll finish here. And if there are any questions, tomorrow in the morning we have Q&A, right? So we continue tomorrow in the morning. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Bhagavan Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Sri Jagannath Balaj Subhadre ki jai, Sri Gadadhara Pandita Tirobhava Mahotsava Tithi ki jai, Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur Tirobhava Mahotsava Tithi ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Preman, Mancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kriparsindubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Hari Bol.